Do you think that, was it intended for children? I mean, I know it wasn't, but what do you think about that?
I think my work was intended for a mentality and not necessarily an age. You know, I mean, some of my stuff, I think that a lot of people would have issues with their kids reading it. But some of the stuff, maybe not so much. But I would have read that when I was a kid. You know, I think a lot of the worry is that it would affect kids and make them horrible or whatever. But I loved that stuff when I was a kid. I grew up, you know, my favorite movie when I was, the first movie I can remember was, I think, Alien, and then something called Coma that I don't remember what it was about. Yeah, it was like, what's his name? Michael Crichton. There you go. Thank you. But I don't like it. It's a little uncomfortable having an audience of kids, you know, because I never intended to have an audience of kids, but you do a kids show, and of course, you know, I guess kids are gonna watch it. But I usually think of, you know, a more adult audience being my audience. So I probably relate to either one of them just equally as horribly, though.
Any chance of a Squee or Johnny the Homicidal Maniac movie?
No, I used to want to do a little straight to DVD kind of thing with Squee, being where his parents were going to sell him off. Well, I like the idea of those McDonald's Playland kind of places. Sort of, you know, you give the people that run the restaurant, you know, a couple of bucks, and they make sure your kid doesn't make it out. And Squee, you know, they're going down the slide, and then like the trap door would open up, and Squee ends up in this underground labyrinth where he's trying to escape with a bunch of other kids, and there's this, you know, it's kind of like a minotaur, and the kids are being used as meat for the restaurant. But I didn't do it, obviously, because I was heard about that on the Oscars or something. Hold on, I want to tell a story about the little kid back there. Dan and I were sitting back there waiting for this thing to start off, and there's a little kid. There's a you know, a family in front of me, and there's two little kids. One of the little kids is telling his dad about, you know, how you're waiting to see me, and I'm sitting behind him, they didn't know I'm there. And I overhear, I'm talking to Dan, but I overhear the kid say, you know, he's fatter than he is in the comments. He also had no skinny in it. You know. I love the idea that I'm fat.
Okay, having only ever done your own work, how do you find being an artist? You know, submissions, deadlines, pay, stuff like that goes versus doing work for other comics or just work for hire?
I don't know, I'm not really big with people coming up with me and asking me. No one ever comes up to me and says, hey, do stuff for my, you know, my comic. I basically have always done my own thing. The most I've ever had to deal with, you know, outside agencies with Nickelodeon. And that was weird, working with a bunch of other people, but in terms of comics, it's always just been me kind of doing whatever I want to, and then Dan cries. And then he's like, he publishes it. But I've never dealt with other people's characters or anything like that. Like, no one's come to me saying, hey, we want you to do, you know, Batman or something. Because they're, you know, they know better.
Thank you.
If you've gotten these questions already, I really haven't been able to find anything online or magazines or anything. I was wondering, what have you been working on lately, if anything? And as a sub-question, do you plan on doing anything or creating anything in response to being pigeonholed as a creator of Goth comics and stuff like that?
I'm very aware of, anytime I walk into a comic shop, I walked into the Atomic Comics recently, that, not Atomic, I'm sorry, Golden Apple that just opened up. They moved because their building was falling apart over in LA. And they didn't have a Goth comic section. Yeah. And it was the first time, it was freaky. And I walked up to, you know, because I knew the guys there, and I'm like, who's responsible for not having the Goth comic section? They're like, oh yeah, we decided to do it. I just shook their hand. Like, that's awesome. Because, you know, when I was starting comics, I had a lot of other comics in my head. I had a lot of other, you know, other books that I had begun reading. People that I was a fan of myself. And the thought of having a comic published and seeing it up there, you know, in the rack with these other guys was just, yeah, it was just kind of, it was a cool thought. And it happened for a little while, and then the sort of market changed or something, I don't know, you know, whatever. And then they started having these spooky comic sections where I was there with other books, and then everything I did, no matter what it was, ended up on that rack. And it was kind of like a ghetto for these books. Which made it really easy for people to find my stuff, but it was also kind of like, oh, there's that guy. You know, I got a lot of attitude from other artists, because like, oh, you're that guy that does that shit. You know?
Well, because the readers will get kind of pigeonholed for it too. I've gotten like, oh, it's Squee, so you're Goth. And I'm like, dude, I'm wearing an Operation Ivy shirt.
So they're like, so you're Goth. Yeah, I don't know. It's, I don't dig it, but it's kind of not my motivation. You know what I mean? I mean, I do what I do, and a lot of the stuff that I'm coming out with, that I'm thinking of now and working on now, has nothing to do with that scene, but I'm sure people would go, okay, well, what are those spooky sections? So, hopefully that changes. You know, it's been years now. It's dying off. Hopefully, you know, that whole scene dies off. It's ancient by this point. Yeah, there's just, it's a relic. And I don't want to be associated with that. You get dragged down with it, so.
Hey, I just want to know if you can actually list any projects you're working on for movies or comics or anything like that, or television shows?
In terms of books, I'm writing stuff that other people are illustrating. One of them coming out by Comic-Con, July. That's it's just a one-off kind of thing. I've been sort of, I was going to start it off back with Everything Can Be Beaten, where I was going to try and regularly work with other people, where I was just writing and they were illustrating, just to keep stuff out and to just sort of exercise, you know, my writing. It just got hard to keep that up. But we're working on something now. It's called JellyFist. We got a completely nonsensical title. The entire book is me writing very surreal, almost basically one-page scripts, sending them off to someone who has no idea really what they are about, and they're illustrating them the way that they think this scene is supposed to play out. Then they come back to me and I'm like, what have you done? This is wrong. And it eventually got to the point where we integrated that into the book so that there's the comic, and then along the side there's a kind of running commentary, because every time she turns the comic in, I basically bitch her out, and then she bitches me out about, you know, what a horrible script it was. So the sides are basically us talking about, you know, why would you have done this? You know, and she's like, well, you gave me crap. It's fun. It's a little experiment. The other, I'm working on another one that is a bit more narrative, and that's going to take a little longer. Probably hoping by next Comic-Con it should be out. As far as my own, just my comic stuff, ideas, but I haven't started on anything right now. I'm writing, the focus right now is I'm writing a script for a feature film. One of the cool things about having certain fans is that they have money, and they're like, do you want money to make a movie? And I'm like, okay. Really low budget, super low budget, to the point where I can do whatever the hell I want to and I get left alone, which is nice, you know? So right now I'm working on the script, and I can't really go too much into what it's about, but I'd be writing it and then directing it, and hopefully all of that gets happening this year. But you know, to everyone else, it just looks like you're not actually working because you're not putting out books. But I'm doing stuff, so hopefully someday you'll be able to rent someday bargain bin.